Hello, I hope you're doing well. In today's video I will be reviewing God of War, Ghost of Sparta. Before we get to that, if you want to see more reviews then feel free to like and subscribe. A series of flashbacks reveals that the Oracle had foretold that the demise of Olympus would come not by the revenge of the Titans, who had been imprisoned after the Great War, but by a mortal, a marked warrior. Ares believes that this marked warrior was Deimos, the brother of Kratos. Ares, assisted by Athena, kidnapped Deimos. Deimos was taken to the domain of death, where he was tortured and imprisoned by Thanatos, the god of death. Years later, Kratos has taken Ares' place as the god of war. Still haunted by visions of his past, and against Athena's wishes, Kratos seeks out the truth. After reaching the temple where his mother is kept, she attempts to reveal the true identity of Kratos' father. Before she can tell him, she turns into a ruthless beast. After a battle ensues between Kratos and the beast turns back into his mother. His mother then says to him, "You must find and save Deimos." On his travels, Kratos comes across a trapped titan named Thera. Kratos frees Thera, ensuing in a volcanic eruption that will eventually destroy Atlantis. Kratos decides to go to his hometown of Sparta to find out more about the kidnapping of Deimos. While traveling through the Aronian Pass, Kratos comes across the goddess Erinis, daughter of Thanatos. After a vicious battle, Kratos brutally kills Erinis and reaches Sparta. Later, Kratos travels to the Temple of Ares, where he encounters the spirit of his child self and retrieves the key to the domain of death. Kratos finally manages to get inside the domain of death. After fighting through traps, multiple enemies, and overwhelming odds, Kratos finally releases his brother Deimos. Enraged that Kratos had failed to rescue him sooner, and stating that he will never forgive him, a battle ensues. After fighting for a while, Thanatos gets involved, throwing Deimos to the very edge of a cliff that Kratos once tried to throw himself off. Kratos saves Deimos from his ultimate death, and Deimos forgives him. Deimos and Kratos team up to fight Thanatos, but unfortunately, in the middle of battle, Thanatos kills Deimos. Enraged, Kratos battles Thanatos to death and kills him. After burying his brother, Athena appears and begs Kratos for forgiveness. Athena offers Kratos full godhood for not revealing the truth, but Kratos ignores her and returns to Olympus, promising that the gods will pay for this. The graphics for this game are pretty well done, especially considering that this game was also released on the PlayStation Portable. I myself thought that the graphics wouldn't be great on the PS3 version, just because it was built for the PSP as well. Thankfully, the PSP version does not hinder the PS3 release. I thought because the game was on a smaller screen, it looked much better than it would on a bigger screen, but thankfully I was wrong and the graphics hold up very well. I'm very happy to say that the controls hold up much better than they do in the first God of War game. If you watched my last review of God of War, you will remember how I was talking about how the QuickTime events were not done very well under certain circumstances. Well, I'm happy to say that in this version of God of War, the QuickTime events are perfectly done. As I mentioned before in the other review, pressing the circle button constantly was a real pain, because you were either doing it too slow or too fast. For this game, I'm happy to say that they have it perfectly done. I will say that I noticed this for God of War Chains of Olympus as well. I know I didn't review that game, but it was the same style as this game. The thing that is the same about both of these games is that they were both released on the PlayStation Portable. I don't know, but for some reason, in Chains of Olympus and in this game, the QuickTime events were perfectly done. You would honestly think it would be the exact opposite, that the mainline games for the consoles would actually have better QuickTime events than on a portable device. It's unfortunate that the mainline games have harder QuickTime events than on a portable device. Hopefully this trend changes when we get to God of War 2 and 3, but we'll see when we get there. To be honest, the amount of content in this game does not live up to the past God of War games. They do have some pretty cool extra content stuff, but just not as much behind the scenes stuff as they did in the first God of War game. They have some cool concept art for characters, levels, and stuff like that. They also have an arena kind of mode where you can choose between 4 different challenges, like surviving the longest without dying, opening 4 chests before you're killed, and interesting little challenges like that. I tried the challenge where you have to survive for a certain amount of time, and boy, was that hard. So just be warned that it is very hard to play. You also have some videos that you can unlock with your red orbs that will show you more backstory of some characters. The one I watched was about Deimos, and it told us about what happened to him after he was kidnapped, and it was very interesting to watch. You also have a place called Zeus's Vault. Zeus's Vault is pretty cool. You can actually use the red orbs to purchase extra items. These items include backstory videos, concept art, and enemies that you can unlock to fight in the arena mode. Speaking of arena mode, let me talk more about it. I really like this arena mode. If you've ever played games like Halo Reach, for instance, you know that there is a mode called Firefight. It's basically the same thing, but for God of War. You get to choose which enemy types you fight against, how many of them you get to fight, and you can even alter how much health you have, and how much health the enemies have. I always go for the classic unlimited health and unlimited powers, just so I feel more powerful and feel like an actual god. You can even change the character you play as, but you can only choose between like 3 or 4 characters, but it's better than nothing. This mode is actually a very good way of collecting a lot of orbs in the short amount of time. It's kind of OP'd, but it's still really fun to do. Alright, now it's time for the gameplay. Now the gameplay isn't very in-depth or anything, but I might as well tell you about some of the weapons that you have. So obviously you have the Blades of Chaos, which are cool, and I feel like the upgrading is a lot more balanced with all the weapons, including the Blades of Chaos. You also have the Arms of Sparta, which consists of a spear and a shield. When fully upgraded, the Arms of Sparta can be very powerful, especially against the harder enemies. I would suggest upgrading these as soon as possible, because some of the harder enemies will fall much easier to this weapon than you think they would. I always disliked using these weapons when I first originally played the game, but when you actually give it a try, you will be surprised at how strong they are. Early on in the game, you actually get a significant upgrade to your blades. What you get is Thera's Bane. What this does is that it ignites your blades with fire. This can be very handy against enemies with armor and shields. It's also very good to use because it can kill your enemies faster by setting them on fire. So this would be very good to use against enemies that you want to stun so you can fight off the other enemies. There are 3 magical abilities that Kratos learns throughout the game. Those abilities are the Eye of Atlantis, Scourge of Aranus, and the Horn of Boris. The Eye of Atlantis shoots out a strong beam of lightning that can attack multiple enemies at once. The Scourge of Aranus is kind of like the Souls of Hades from God of War 1. What it does is it shoots out a big ball of, I honestly have no idea, and it attacks multiple enemies at once, hitting them over and over and over again. This could be very handy against large groups of enemies. The Horn of Boris freezes everybody in the area. It's a simple magical ability, but it can be very effective. So, this is the part of the review where I offer up my opinions about the game. I personally don't have any problems with this game, really. There's plenty of story, and it's easy to follow. There's not a lot of content, but enough to keep you entertained for a little while. You get to learn more about Kratos' backstory, which adds more depth to the character, as well as it gives you more of a reason as to why Kratos does what he does. There's obviously not much else to say about this game that I either don't like or do like, because honestly this game is really good. God of War Ghost of Sparta is a very nostalgic game for me. It was one of the first video games I really got into when I was a kid. It was the first PSP game I have ever played, and I got it with the God of War Special Edition PSP. This game will always be a treasured memory, and it's really nice to come back to this game years later to review it. If you haven't figured it out before, I'm going to tell you now that you should definitely get this game, or at least try it out. So that's the end of today's review. Thank you all so much for watching, and see you in the next video.